Good evening and welcome, a very warm welcome to all of you. Having the first Auroville Literary Festival is something very precious to us. That too on Sri Aurobindo's 150th year. You know, without Sri Aurobindo, none of us would be here. Neither Auroville, neither this whole dream, this vision of the city, nothing. And yet, this was a place created as a universal town, as a city of the future. And the mother actually spoke of having an international publishing house in this place. So there's a long way to go. And a literature festival is something which sets that milieu, sets that context. So we're very happy to welcome all the authors who have come, all the poets, the cultural evenings that will happen. At the same time, we are also very grateful for the teams over here, you know, the Bharat Nivas team, the Unity Pavilion team, the Savitri Bhavan team, and of course the Auroville Foundation, which has been extremely encouraging and helpful all throughout, and the Ministry of Culture, which has supported us. So we're ready to start. And I'd like to introduce to you Sudha, who has been alongside with me. There you are, a festival coordinator. You've all heard of her. She's running from 0 hours to 0 hour. And I just hand it over to her.
Thank you, Anu. And once again, a very, very warm welcome. Vanakkam, bonjour, namaste. And as Anu said, this is our very first Auroville Literature Festival. It has been ably supported by the team from WOW and the Chennai International Center. And we are very privileged to have them here with us today, and our chief guest, Shri Sanjeev Sanyal. So welcoming Shri Sanjeev Sanyal ji, Sanjeev Chopra ji, Tirumurti ji, and our own Madam Jayanti ji, to please come on to the dais so that we can start the proceedings for the Literature Festival. Thank you so much for coming here. And a very warm welcome also to the authors. You know, it is for the very first time. We have authors not just from Auroville and Pondicherry, but also from the rest of the parts of the world and India, across different genres, across different themes. And I'm sure the next 2.5 days, while we will be spoiled for choices, it's also going to be promising to be a most immersive experience. So I invite Anu to give a little background about this festival. Okay, so before we go to the background, just like any every other function, that we start with lighting the lamp. The significant part is that this lamp within us to light the light, and may with this light, will light the light in the hearts of everyone. So just going to invite Sanyalji and all the other dignitaries present on the stage to inaugurate the first ever Auroville Literature Festival, August 25th, 2023. And we could deserve a much louder applause for that. It's a sincere request that all mobiles, which can be the biggest distractor in our lives, be switched off or put on aeroplane mode. I'm going to invite each one of them to say a few words. the first to speak, Dr. Jayanti S. Ravi. Yes, she holds a role and responsibility as the Secretary of Auroville Foundation, but to know her as an author, to have her here as somebody who's, in addition to being a scientist, a civil servant, she's a writer, she's a speaker, she's an educator, she's a performance, and I'm sure she wears several different hats out over here. She comes from a very diverse academic background and comes from an extensive professional experience. She has authored books. In fact, she's also one of our panelists out over here. And it'll be a privilege to hear what really prompted to have that book really be written down. She has published in several international journals. She has guided doctoral students, and she's a visiting faculty at the Harvard University. As Principal Secretary and Commissioner, Rural Development in Gujarat, she spearheaded the Swachh Bharat mission, and she was recognized for her leadership role during the COVID-19 break. Inviting Dr. Jayanti S. Ravi to say a few words on this occasion.
As we entered this beautiful Sri Aurobindo auditorium, we heard the chants of a special Gayatri. I was explaining to Tirumurti ji, who was sitting on my right, that the Gayatri mantra that we're all usually accustomed to, that we hear, it talks about truth or the divine lighting our intellect. But this mantra is a little different. Sri Aurobindo actually prays and requests truth consciousness to illumine all dimensions of our being, integral. And if it is okay with all of you, those of you who are familiar with the mantra, I thought I'll start with it, and you may join if you feel like. Om Tatsaviturvaram Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Deepayet Satyena Deepayet Om Tat Saviturvaram Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yanna Satyena Deepayet Satyena Deepayet. Namaste, Vanakkam, good evening, bonjour. With a lot of love and respect, we want to welcome each one of you to this very, very special inauguration, the beginning of the first Auroville Literature Festival. And we say this word first with a lot of pride, because we are really hoping that with the blessings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, in whose sanidhya we are all sitting here today, we offer this also at their lotus feet and hope that this small beginning actually gets firmly established, institutionalized, and we see it really taking shape as a literature festival that will go on year after year with participation from people all across the world, with the best authors and poets, writers, people of the world of art and culture that can come here. And we're very, very thankful today that to really see this happen, I must share something that happened over 6 to 7 months ago. I had gone to Delhi to meet the Secretary of Culture, Sri Govind Mohanji. And a lot of times, I'm sure all of you here would have experienced this. You know, we with our little ideas, our mind thinking and, formulating things. This is how I'm planning to do this. This is how it'll happen. But we always believe there are these two people sitting up there who make plans and decide what is going to happen, the Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So
at that meeting, just as I was completing my part of the discussion and getting ready to go, somebody else arrived there, none other than Sanjeev Chopra ji. And he was there. We also then, Govind Mohanji, the secretary there, asked me to stay on for a little while. And that is how this whole possibility, the seed of thought of actually having a literature festival in the year of India's presidency of G20 with the theme of One Earth, One Family, One Future, which in a way has already been done here about 55 years ago. It was implemented by the spiritual collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, the mother, also known as Mira Alfasa. But what has been attempted here is based on the writings of Sri Aurobindo. He wrote extensively about a Gnostic community, Sanatana Dharma, where he sees that inherent oneness in all of creation, in all human beings, cutting across what we may define labels of, different things that differentiate one from the other. And therefore, when this small seed of an idea, it was just a few words, a conversation there. And then I think it took us about 6 months of several rounds of meetings. We came back, and the team at Auroville, I must really compliment Anu, Sudha, and an entire team which has been working on it with the team from the Valley of Words, which Sri Sanjeev Chopra, he has been a part of that whole beautiful effort which is going on year after year across India and getting authors from all over. And the Chennai International Center. We don't have Mr. Chandramouli ji today with us, but he will be joining us tomorrow. And Tirumurti ji as well. He needs no introduction. He was India's permanent representative to the United Nations till 2022. And I think all of them coming together gave us a greater boost on actually seeing how to convert the small conversation that we had in the plane of ideation to actually make it happen on the ground. And I must say that slowly, steadily, this idea started taking shape. Our gratitude to the Ministry of Culture, who have generously supported us. This is the 150th birth anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. I think all of you are very familiar with him, his work. And this is also a city that he wanted to be founded. It is something that came through in his writings, and Mother said that he was not a revelation dream. I'm paraphrasing it, but she says he represented direct action. And she was the one who actually transposed these ideas, these thoughts on the ground here 55 years ago on the 28th of February, 1968. And when we look at that, just to do a quick recap, we are in the very, very special month of August, and today afternoon the LitFest has already begun, I would say, in several ways, because the conversations at the lunch when we were discussing the word August also has a bit of a connotation, as Professor Joysen was mentioning, to this part of India. This part of India also used to be known as Vedapuri, and Agastya Rishi was here. And in fact, some of you may also be aware, there is archaeological research which was done to show that the Samadhi, where Sri Aurobindo's Samadhi is actually the place where we all go and meditate and offer our prayers. The tail end of it actually used to be the Havan Kund of Agastya Rishi, and it is also believed that in one of their earlier births, Agastya Rishi and Lopamudra, there is some connection with Sri Aurobindo and the mother as well. This is documented also. So in that context, when we talk of the month of August, which is what we are in now, which is a very special month, it's the month of the birthday of the Lord, Sri Aurobindo. In the year 1947, when India got her freedom, it was as he says, not a kind of fortuitous coincidence that his birthday fell. The independence of India happened on that day, and he gave 5 dreams. These 5 dreams were telecast on All India Radio Tiruchirappalli. There's no recording, and in fact, we tried very hard from the ashram and other very, very authentic sources. We're given to understand that there's no available voice recording of Sri Aurobindo at all. But this speech was read out by a broadcaster there, and the gist of it, which is also the theme of this 150th birth anniversary celebrations, which is happening across India and the world. And there is also a high-level committee chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, who has been giving a great deal of push to really seeing these thoughts, these direct action, these words actually spread far and wide. So the 5 dreams speak of a free and united India, but they also speak of a resurgent Asia. But the 3rd, 4th, and 5th dreams have a very direct connect with Auroville. It's about a greater, nobler, brighter world order, which is in a way getting made in this sandbox, in this little laboratory, where Mother didn't leave anything to chance, but she actually went and designed a city with all the details, the demographic of how it should be, what would the elements be, the brick, mortar, gravel, but also the kind of culture, art, museum, the zones, different activities, different aspects of life here. And the imprint, the model of the city is not only here in a beautiful exhibition, which I would really request all of you to take some time out in the course of the next 2.5 days to go and visit, but it is also now exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art, MoMA, at New York. It has been there as well. And so this 3rd dream was for a greater, nobler, brighter world. The 4th dream was India's gift of spirituality to the whole world. And the 5th actually is about the evolution, where at some point of time, I'm sure there may have been some conclaves like this and conferences where the so-called most powerful elements of, species of the animal kingdom would have sat and said that beyond the physical body, what can be more powerful? It would have been beyond their ken to even imagine that there can be a being with the mind which can perhaps profess and actually try to be stronger, which is what today we all are. But there is, as Sri Aurobindo said, this is work in progress. And the 5th dream was about having a place in a way where this process of evolution doesn't happen in its own old, slow pace, but happens at a very, very accelerated pace. And it is with that intention that Auroville has also been created. So we're very happy that today, on the occasion of the 150th birth anniversary, this special literature festival is taking place. And this is a city of really building consciousness and having this in an integral way that permeates every dimension of the being. That has been the aim, the vision of Auroville. And Mother didn't leave it to anybody, but gave all the details of how it should be, where would the different aspects of this city, how would they take shape, and so on. And we're very happy that in a mission mode, we're all collectively aspiring to see how this beautiful city, as envisioned by Mother, can actually manifest. And the Literature Festival, too, is a very, very integral, important part of the city. City, again, is not just brick, mortar, gravel, but there's so many elements to it. And I think this is also a very important foundation and part of the city, which we are all collectively trying to manifest, a city that Mother already saw. She said it's already there. We only have to let it land. And that's what we're all sincerely trying to do. I want to express our immense gratitude to Sri Sanjeev Sanyalji. In spite of all his preoccupations, his schedules, he had to spend time today at Tanjavur. He had to go to Gangaikonda Chorapuram, but he actually cut all that short, and it was very sweet of him to come here and be with us today. And we can go on and on about all of this. Also, I want to especially express my gratitude to Sanjeev Chopra ji, because his entire team at the Value of Words, they've helped us in so many ways in terms of shortlisting the books, identifying and doing a lot of back work, which all goes into making a festival of this kind happen. And we're really looking forward to this continued collaboration, participation with them. We also want to thank Tirumurti ji, because there were so many little things, including sometimes issues related to visa for some of our international participants. So even through last afternoon, late last night, and this morning, he's been helping us on that as well. So we again feel these are all signs, these are all little indications that we're getting support from every quarter to really make this happen. So it's all a sign that the divine is helping us, and we want to offer all our gratitude to them and express our gratitude to all the wonderful authors, the artists who've come here. We have some very good cultural programs as well. So this being the year of the G20 presidency, 55th birth anniversary of Auroville as well. We really feel this is something very important, an important milestone in the history of Auroville, which is happening this year. And we look forward to all of you participating fully in it, and 2.5 days of a lot of interactions, very enriching conversations, things that we will carry back with us, ruminate, reflect on, and spread all of this to the rest of the world, because the purpose of these events is not just for us, but it's about disseminating the scent, the fragrance of all this all over. And the overarching theme, how is this LitFest different from others? I would like to, with all humility, share that one of the things we've tried to do very consciously is that in every theme, every topic, can we bring in that element that really elevates and bring in that element which borders mysticism as well. So even the conversation, the fireside chat with the filmmaker Gautam Vasudev Menon, we've tried to see how the depiction of women and the 4 aspects of Mother, as Sri Aurobindo spoke of, Maheshwari, Mahakali, Mahalakshmi and Mahasaraswati, how is it that these can actually have an impact on elevating human life, humanity, and consciousness? So on that note, again, we welcome all of you to this LitFest, the first edition, and look forward to all your support, your participation, not only in this one, but your ideas and suggestions for really institutionalizing it and taking it forward. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to invite Tirumurti ji. In addition to a diplomatic career that's been spanning over 37 years, one of the known facts, or maybe little known facts, I don't know, is also an author of 3 different books. But most importantly, over the last 2 months, the way he held our hands into ensuring that we could truly bring this literature festival at the level it needs to be. So inviting you to share a few words and perhaps a few snippets of your novel.
Friends, it's indeed a great pleasure to welcome all of you to the first Auroville Literary Festival and to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Sri Aurobindo. Allow me at the outset to congratulate Auroville, and in particular Jayanti Ravi and her wonderful team, a wonderful dynamic team, for making this literary festival a reality. What they have put together in their maiden venture is actually truly remarkable. And in many ways, it's a dream come true for her, and indeed for all of us. And they have had 2 very able partners to support them in this quest. Sanjeev Chopra and his team, another extremely vibrant team from the Valley of Words, and Chandramouli, who is not here today, but his team is very much here, from the Chennai International Center. And I would like to thank them for their hard work and the unstinting support for this literary festival. It was the great poet Percy Shelley who, in one of his more expansive moments, he asserted that poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. While I'm not so sure about the legislators part, but as a former diplomat, I can say that there have been many poet diplomats, some of whom have actually gone on to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, like Octavio Paz, Pablo Neruda, Czeslaw Milosz, and others. So when poets can be diplomats, bureaucrats can do even better. So we have this very dynamic group of senior bureaucrats who have put their heart and soul in making this wonderful Auroville Literary Festival and bring it together. And if I may take a bit of liberty with Shelley, I can only say that bureaucrats are the unacknowledged literators of the world. And I think it's time to acknowledge it. Before we start patting ourselves on the back, let me assure you that this festival is anything but a bureaucratic exercise. It's an exercise of passion. The organizers and their team have been extraordinary professionals, extremely talented in their own right. And they put their heart and soul into making this literary festival a success. We now have some of the leading lights of literature, fiction and non-fiction, thinkers and opinion makers in India and from around the world participating in this event. Allow me to extend a very warm welcome to all of them. And this event in particular is significant in the context of the G20 presidency that India is currently holding. Before I conclude, I would like to leave with you all with one thought. Many of you have heard of the very well-known book, which was published in 2005, called Freakonomics. It was written by Stephen Dubner and Stephen Levitt. In spite of the rather freakish nature of the title, it is actually a very seriously researched book. And it's very interesting. I personally found it extremely fascinating. And one of the correlation which the book draws is that parents who own bookshelves raise kids who do better in school. That's an extremely important correlation which this book draws. And for many of us Indians, actually it's a no-brainer. But interestingly, this research was also correlated by a British study which was done in 2013. So at a time when the television screens are getting bigger and bigger, and the bookshelves are getting smaller and smaller, if not disappearing altogether from our homes, let us at least for the sake of our future, our children's future, start putting bookshelves back into our homes. Even if the world is turning digital, there is always space for bookshelves. It helps our children, and it also helps the authors and intellectuals who are striving to make this a better world. So I thank you all once again for coming for this wonderful festival in Auroville. Thank you.
Thank you so much. BRB, while we all understand as Be Right Back, I would like to read it as Books Right Back. So thank you so much for that. It's a pleasure now to invite Dr. Sanjeev Chopra. We've heard about value of words, but I would really like to introduce the person behind this inspiration of value of words. He's a recipient of the Robert S. McNamara Fellowship of the World Bank and the Hubert H. Humphrey Fellowship at the University of Cornell, a guest scholar at the Brookings Institution, Washington, D.C., and part of the 21st Century Trust Fellows Program at Merton College, Oxford. He has written extensively on policy issues in governance and development, and his latest book, We the People of Bharat, is a festival director of Value of Words, Literature and Art International Festival. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sudha. Ms. Jayanti Ravi, our chief guest for the day, my very dear friend Sanjeev Sanyal, and my batchmate. Batchmates are very special, so Thiru is exceptionally special. Greetings from the Valley of Words. We come from a place where you can see both the Shivaliks and the Himalayas, and from Shivaliks and Himalayas we come to the Indian Ocean. It's such a great connect. It's a great connect of geography, of course, but it's also a great connect of demographics. It's a great connect of of literature. That's a great connect of cultures, of languages, of so many things which go on to make Bharatvarsh. Because the concept of Bharat is far more ancient than the concept of India. And of course, India, Bharat, they all go together. And it is through literature, it is through words, it is through many of these things that the whole reality begins to manifest itself. It's difficult to speak after Jayanti and Thiru because, they've already spoken many things. But let's look at the word as word. The word in the alphabet. Akshar. The rest of the world is kshar. That is, the rest of the world could be temporary. But akshar stands for something which transcends the temporal. Akshar is something which transcends not just the temporal, but also transcends the spatial. So you have alphabets, and no language would have more than 2 score, 3 score alphabets, 4 score at best. But look at the number of words which these alphabets create. So you have 26 letters in the English alphabet, which create 2 million words, but which create many, many, many more worlds. So it's the alphabet, the word, the world coming together, connecting. And it is through this word and world that life grows, and that is where the whole aspect of consciousness, that is what the mother in Sri Aurobindo spoke about. That is, how do we search for higher truths? How do we search? In fact, every time one reads Sri Aurobindo, one is enlightened. In fact, today morning when I was reading again for the third or fourth time essays on the Gita, one realized the great point which Sri Aurobindo was making, that every time you interpret a shlok, it is in the context of that time. And that keeps evolving. And I think that's the wonderful part of it. Friends, there are literature festivals and literature festivals. And as the Hindu reporter was asking me that, how did you set about creating this festival? And as Jayanti said, it happened over a conversation. So I was telling this Hindu reporter that, a literature festival is not like an infrastructure project. It is not that you have a certain length of road that you have to make 300 kilometers and that will have, 84 bridges and this will be the span, this will be the length. A literature festival by its very nature will evolve. As you get into conversation, as you start creating panels, as you start getting books, you realize that this can be connected and this can be connected, and that's where the internal connections comes. That is where you find, poetry and literature and art and architecture and town planning and urban planning and the retelling of history all coming together in an absolutely wonderful, unthought of amalgam, because you cannot set about creating a literature festival as a block of bricks. And let's look at the theme of this festival, the logo of this festival. Look at this. And that comes from a conversation. That comes from a message which the mother had given, that, that these are, consider each cell to be conscious. And if you consider each cell to be conscious, then this conscious cell will create a terrestrial world, a universe, which you have never, ever thought of. And it expands and expands and it expands. So friends, let me tell you a little bit about the value of words. The value of words, we believe, most importantly, amongst other things, it's multilingual, multi-genre, multi venues, but it also is a very intergenerational connect. Because we find that we are all very happy talking to our batchmates and friends, people who are 5 years elder, people who are 5 years younger. But where is the connect between a 6-year-old and a 16-year-old and a 36-year-old and a 96-year-old? The world is also requires an intergenerational connect. And I'm so glad that we have the Yuva authors here. We have the Yuva authors here who will be talking to us about retelling of history, which is fantastic. Because whenever we look at anything, whether it's a poem, or these days a poem is, we learned poem as poem, these days they call it poem. So, things keep changing. So every word, everything is so interesting. So I'm very glad that the Yuva is here. I'm very glad that, we've all being able to come together, because I am very, when in 1909, when Sri Aurobindo gave the Uttarapara address, which is, I think, one of the most seminal texts of India's freedom movement, because in 1909 you had three great texts which came up. One was Hind Swaraj by Mahatma Gandhi, and he wrote that, and his concept of the Bharat that he wanted to create was of an economic emancipation. God comes to a poor man in the form of bread. That's absolutely true. There's nothing, no one can contradict that statement. It was also the year when Veer Savarkar wrote the first War of Independence, which changed our perception of 1857. Before that, until 1947, it was still called mutiny, but the first person who said that it is the first War of Independence, the first war of national assertion, was Veer Savarkar. But the third very important text that came in 1909 was the Uttarapara Address, in which Sri Aurobindo said that salvation of India lies in its spiritual and cultural elevation. And it is this spiritual and cultural, elevation of India that we are talking about today. So we are very fortunate, very proud that we have been able to partner with Jayanti, Ravi, and a wonderful team of Sudha and Anu, who worked very hard. A big round of applause for these three ladies who actually put this together. So grateful to you. And we are very happy that we have a young scholar with us. I call him young because he's much younger to me. But Sanjeev changed the way we looked at our history. It's very important because, he brought out, as I would say, he took out history from the clutches of the historians. Because before that, you needed to be a historian, you needed to be a professional historian to comment on history. Sanjeev broke that when he wrote The Land of Seven Rivers. And the very interesting thing about his books is that it comes with little interesting snippets. For example, that Allahabad was the capital of the country for one day. And why was Allahabad chosen as the capital of the country? For that, you got to read his book, because if I tell you everything, then we authors have to ensure that we don't let out all the secrets. Otherwise, our sales will go down, right, Sanjeev? So on this very pleasant note, let me welcome everyone once again on behalf of the Value of Words. Our team here, our volunteers here are delighted to be here, and it's a real pleasure. We hope and pray and wish and invoke the blessings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, that this festival grow from strength to strength, let knowledge grow from more to more, and thus be human life enriched. Thank you very much.